So you got really into Delanda.
I mean, not really into.
Did you, what did you listen to?
I mean, I listened to pretty much all of his lectures online, which were from like '09 to 11. There's really nothing new. I'm actually kind of wondering what he's up to.
In full disclosure, I've only finished, I'm up to page 41 in this book, so I'm actually not that far in, but
Oh, that's good.
I don't know. I mean, it really ties together like a lot of the things we've been talking about with like dynamical systems, and it sounds like it kind of got you onto the Deleuze and Guattari path.
Well, I'm mainly, how do you call it? Like plastic pills is like really into Deleuze and Guattari, you know?
Right.
And so I was like, I respect a lot of, his podcasts and his videos. So I was kind of like, well, shit. And then I know you're really into it. I keep hearing that people are just like really interested in Deleuze and Guattari. So I'm like, downloaded Zizek's, Organs Without Bodies.
I was about to say I have not yet encountered Zizek on Deleuze. Like, he wasn't brought up in How to Read Lacan, and now I'm going through Sublime Object of Ideology, and he is conspicuously absent from that as well.
Well, the Organs Without Bodies, I guess, kind of is like directly addresses like Deleuze and Guattari. Like, I just was listening to a lecture of his earlier today on like Buddhism, where it's like the topic is like Lacan and Buddhism, and like Buddhism like comes in like an hour after. Like, it's such a teeny little part. He really likes Deleuze, but he hates Deleuze and Guattari.
Right.
Like he kind of made a joke about how, it's not the problem with the Nazis burning books is not that they burnt books, they burnt the wrong books,
Yeah.
When I'm the totalitarian leader, I will burn all of Anti-Oedipus at 1,000 plateaus.
Yeah, that's why I really need to read it. I feel like,
yeah. Well, I thought you started reading Anti-Oedipus.
I think
right?
Yeah, how far did I get? I feel like I got maybe 20 pages, and I was just like, this is too weird.
Oh, dude, that's already, like, yeah,
I'm
like,
on page 9.
I'm not sure I got that far in. I was listening to someone, essentially a fan, read aloud.
Yeah. Well, do you want to...
On YouTube.
Do you want to go through it? Do you want to read it with me, and we can, like, discuss it? Go, like, paragraph by paragraph?
I was actually, I'd be fine with that. The main thing is I need like a secondary source, because like the only thing that like Delanda, like let's kind of go back to Delanda a little bit. Like Delanda, I totally understand what he's saying. He's like totally comprehensible.
Mm-hmm.
He uses words for the most, like in almost all cases, except when he's, I feel like bordering Deleuze directly. Like he's using words in the way that I know what they mean.
Right.
Like he's using them expecting us to share the same meaning. Except like, I was just thinking intensities is like the only place where I start to wonder, does he mean what he's saying, or is this like a Deleuzian intensities?
Well,
you know what I mean?
I know somebody who has read all of Deleuze, or maybe even a couple of people, and they really don't like Delanda that much, and they prefer Ian Buchanan, but I would not be able to tell you why.
There was an interview Plastic Pills had with someone who's like a Deleuze scholar, whose whole like life and work is around Deleuze. And I guess the main thing is their main bone to pick with Delanda is that Deleuze and Guattari start out from desire, but he essentially ignores that. He's like, let's not,
right.
Let's not talk about like desire, and I mean, of course, even just beginning Anti-Oedipus, like that's central to that. It's like desiring, what is it, production, desire, or desire production, desire, like...
Yeah, I think it's desiring production.
Desiring production, yes.
Well, I think he ends up scrapping the desiring machines, and then that becomes assemblages. I'm not totally sure.
I thought assemblage was more out, coming from like 1,000 Plateaus.
Yeah, and I think that came out after after.
That's I think part 2.
Yeah.
Of what is it? Capitalism and
schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We could. Do you want to talk about the Delanda, like that specific section, the introduction, and then switch over to DNG? Yeah. What'd you think? Well, I mean, like, let's contain it to that specific text if we can.
My thing with Delanda, I mean, as much as I do understand what he's actually saying, the engineer in me and like the way that, how do you call it, the kind of let's say scientific metaphysics, I my bones to pick with Delanda would be, I'm not sure if conflation is the right word. He puts things together that I don't think fit exactly. Like in the very first sentence, what is it? Or second, holds as its central thesis that all structures that surround us and form our reality, mountains, animals and plants, human languages, social institutions, are the products of historical processes.
Yeah, so everything is deterministic, I guess? Is that like, it's like a historical materialism?
No, well, I guess the main thing, first of all, it's like maybe to get Deleuzian about it. It's like, there's no, oh God, how to say it? Well, the main thing is, first of all, historical processes. Like, are the result of historical processes? Are they historical processes themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, is there a distinguish?
Yeah. I was gonna say Zizek talks specifically about this in Sublime Object, where he sort of differentiates that like an event has two sort of phases of understanding of it, and the first is that like we misrecognize it, and then the second is that it I don't know if I'm using the right language, but like we signify it and it becomes part of our reality. And so
this is the repetition of the same.
Yeah, that might be this, because he does talk about it in terms of repetition. But I really just kind of struggle with that, because I feel like you kind of have to like say what an event is. Like it's one of the two I don't know, just in my intuition, that it's like either misrecognized or it's like properly understood. But it sort of like changes over time. Like you retroactively sort of give it like its meaning that it always kind of had. And so it just doesn't feel like there's this like delineation between events, I guess. It just feels like one constant stream of just like misrecognizing and then understanding and then misrecognizing and going back and forth. So it's kind of hard for me to say like this caused that, at least like intuitively, if that makes sense.
Well, so I mean, first of all, like when going into Zizek and that's in a certain sense, or I have this, whether it's actually like factual to like reality or not, I have like a delineation between like material and mind. I sort of can't help but like somewhat separate them.
Is this like the base superstructure?
So that's kind of maybe. I guess I don't even use those terms.
Okay.
Just to go from like a scientific standpoint.
Yeah.
It's just like how ideas develop and like what's kind of going on in a human mind.
Mm-hmm. And that's immaterial.
Or unless it's not immaterial. Because again, if we're truly materialist, it emerges out of material, right?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
But the only problem is, unless you're of the belief that, let's say, consciousness exists before humans, or that like consciousness is like embedded in all matter, which I honestly don't really know what to think about. It seems to me that there are just pure physical processes that somehow consciousness comes out of, rather than, consciousness is like under them,
mm-hmm.
so to speak, in the sense that like consciousness lies, let's say, below quantum physics. How like quantum physics gives rise to, let's say, Newtonian or relativistic physics, which, gives rise to chemistry, which gives rise to, or emerge, like each one emerges kind of out of the others.
Right.
Like you can't like chemistry always obeys physics, in the sense that, like what happens chemically cannot do differently than like the relationships within physics allow. But you can't exactly predict just knowing physics, or let's say like atomic, or even like go back down to like quantum. You can't say just knowing what like quantum field theory, like how things are going to happen, like in like how a biological ecosystem will develop, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a biological ecosystem is still just manifesting quantum phenomena, right? Just at like a higher level.
So you're saying these events,
like a higher scale.
These events happen, and as a result, they produce consciousness, and that like we're all sort of part of that consciousness of things unfolding.
I don't know about event. I feel like that word is used in a way that I don't actually entirely know what it means.
Yeah.
If we're talking about like Zizek, Badiou, Lacan, like the event
mm-hmm.
in this like psychological sense. I mean more just in the sense of like physical processes or material process, like just the flows of what we call energy.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
so it's more continuous than
in its different states.
Is that like maybe a fair way of putting it? Is like you kind of look at it more as like a continuous thing than like a discrete thing?
Well, no, because it is both, right? I mean,
mm-hmm.
but I mean in the sense that just in the separation between, because I'm so used to looking, or I'm so trained, I should say, in seeing, let's say, just material systems, even including, let's say, like some like simple life, just like the separation between humans and everything else as far as we know it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it doesn't mean that humans like break the laws of physics,
mm-hmm.
but you can't predict humans based on the laws of physics, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I almost kind of see it as like, oh, sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, no, I was just going to say that he used thermodynamics, you know, like there's a lot of like thermodynamic, he kind of bridges between metaphor and description in a sense that like he sometimes means things, or it gets too close to me for like when he's being kind of, let's say, artistically descriptive, and when he's being like he really means it.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is really a thermodynamic process in terms of like, say, the dissemination or like the what does he call it, with like the intensive differences between like ideas driving like new ideas, or driving like idea flow.
Does he talk about that in the intro? I'm not sure I caught that.
No, sorry, I'm bringing in extra shit.
Oh, that's cheating.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was
dude, I totally need to bring Terrence Deacon in later.
I did want to say earlier, when you were talking about consciousness sort of being a property of matter, I think maybe one could look at it as like consciousness's continued signification, and then like we are constantly adding signifiers to our symbolic order to sort of capture like what is happening to us, and then through that like we form our own understanding, and like that is the process of consciousness. And like with historical events, I think that's pretty similar, where like after they happen, there's this new understanding of how things work. But I was like talking to somebody yesterday about it, and I feel like I have a lot of trouble translating like the structuralist, materialist side of it, of like historical, like social relations having material, and then those, you know, causing, I guess, events in some like very generic sense of the word, and then the analogy of like a person coming to an understanding. So it's like I felt like I got down the path where somebody was telling me that like society has its own understanding, and like it might be like a Geist, or like history has an understanding. I don't know if these are like sounding familiar to you.
The world spirit, yeah.
Right, but I just can't. I can't translate that level of structure to just like the individual mind. Like I feel like you can if you're like a structuralist Marxist, like Althusser or something, where like you believe that like your ideology is going to be determined by your material conditions, and like I just feel like intuitively that doesn't feel correct. And I feel like also you're saying like you can't even predict, you know, human behavior, because it is, you know, I guess quantum-y. So it's like, doesn't that also sort of preclude like this, or enforce this sort of gap between like the Marxist view of like ideology versus like the Lacanian or Freudian kind of picture of like the individual unconscious?
Mike, first of all, really quick, I'm not familiar with Althusser much, but is his idea, or is this, I guess I'm not even familiar with the quote unquote like structuralist Marxism, but is the idea in the sense that you said that your material circumstances like determines ideology? Is it kind of like in the sense of like a if this then that, not in the sense of like let's say your material circumstances like constrain the possible ideologies, you know, in the sense that like,
yeah, like it's that in the last factor or whatever, but there are other factors.
Okay, because I guess I always thought of it or my conception was always more like, you think about like what kind of soil like different seeds can like take root in and like thrive within. You know, so like depending on like what, let's say, plant, you know, is within a certain soil type, you know, say like if it's clay or like rock, or, you know, kind of a mixture, or you got like a loamy soil, you know, or something with like kind of, you know, sand, you know, you're going to have different like the way the water is going to like go through it or be held by it will be different. And so thus different plants will have like different like possibilities or potentials within that ecosystem. I guess that's how I've always thought about it. I wasn't sure, because again, I don't know whether I agree or disagree with the structural Marxists about, you know, ideology formation.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you my really quick understanding of Althusser, which is, and I think you're absolutely right that maybe I'm trying to read it as like super prescriptive about a particular outcome, and like that's not a good reading. Okay, wait, let me first just like tell you like why I think this, which is like, imagine you have two children. One is born to like a working class family, and one is born to like a very, you know, upper class wealthy family. Couldn't there exist like just family dynamics that would create would basically make those two children grow up to be much more similar than like comparing either of them to like a third child that didn't have the same family dynamics but did have the same material condition, right? Like, so there was another working class kid whose, dad worked in the same factory. They were like neighbors or something like that. But I just feel like it's more likely that the rich and the poor child would grow up to be similar than like the two poor children. So that makes me feel like there just is this disconnect between like the individual society and the material conditions that like, somewhat determine ideology. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, no, I totally, one thing I forget, I think I was listening to the This Is Revolution podcast, and they were talking about how the difference between kids, like if your parents beat you or not, or if so in that sense, I think that, two kids who like, say one rich, one not, I think in a certain sense, there would be something of an overlap of experience, at least on that like parental level, just based, on, whether you're receive corporal punishment or not,
Right. And I think that's like the determining instance and not like your class or your material conditions. But I will say, oh, sorry.
Well, here's the thing, Mike, isn't that, I guess this is the problem when we talk about like material, like as being like, say, separate from human, and maybe one thing I do kind of like about Delanda is he's essentially saying all these, social things are themselves also material, right? That say human languages and social institutions are akin to mountains and animals.
I don't recall him like having any sort of divide, so I would assume he saw it all as material.
Yeah. I mean, that was my take from him in his rejection of Hegel and even Marx was just like, I guess his critique of Marx was different, but his definitely rejection of Hegel from like the lectures I listened to was, it's not materialistic. It's essentially talking about how ideas form the material world rather than how the material world forms ideas.
Yeah, and that was more of, I guess as I understand it, Hegel believed that ideas were material, whereas Marx did not.
I thought, or at least the way Delanda put it is Marx put Hegel right side up.
Yeah, I've heard that, although I don't totally get what that means.
Well, just in the sense, I think Hegel, as a, let's say, Christian or theologically minded, believed essentially that I think it's a chicken and egg sort of thing. Like that's how I kept thinking about it as I was hearing it, because, and it's kind of like, well, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Oh, sorry.
No, go.
I guess I was going to ask if that's why, like, I think it was Marx that pointed out that like we see the universal in the particular. Like when we exchange commodities, like we don't see them as commodities, we see it as like this abstract exchangeable thing. And that is, at least in Sublime Object, Zizek's book, he's saying that that's like inversion. And I feel like he's calling it out as like this sort of like logical fallacy or this like cognitive bias or something. Whereas I think Hegel would probably support that, right? Because wouldn't everything sort of converge on like the universal and absolute? Although I really don't understand Hegel at all, so I'm going to shut up.
Yeah, I still haven't gotten to that article.
It's really good.
That kind of
it
was like tough. Breaking down. So, it mentioned that the fact that, or I think it was that article that blog post that mentioned how the dialectics is not thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right?
Right.
And how that's kind of like a Marxist reduction or stupidification of.
Yeah, it sounded like it took several patterns. And rather, like there were, like it was a triad, if I understand that they call it like a Hegelian triad, but like it wasn't always thesis, synthesis, or thesis, antithesis, synthesis. But it sounds like it's like two moments. Like the first is or do you want me to like give my can I wing it, or did you want to talk
Go
more
for
about
it.
Marx?
Oh, dude, bullshit all you want.
Okay, so as I recall, it starts with something called immanent critique, which is you're looking for a contradiction of something inside of it, or rather, or is it that you're presented with a contradiction of it? So the first example he gives is like being and non-being, or shit, there's a better word for it. But you need to, from like within the concept, be able to what's called sublate, which basically means to like suspend the contradiction. Exactly. So, and that brings that sort of, I guess, brings the contradiction back into the concept, and then now like returns sort of this is like a return to unity, and you're now in this like new form of the first thing. So like if you started out with like being, and then the contradiction is like non-being. Then like the sublation is like the idea of existence, where like being is a moment of existence and non-being is like a moment of existence, like it's ceasing to be versus coming to be. It gets really into it and it's really fucking confusing, but it sounded like there were two moments. The first is like doing the immanent critique, and then the second is like the sublation, which I think is also called speculation. And then the result of that is like some determinate form, which is closer to the truth. I think it's like less abstract. I don't know. That's about as far as I understand dialectics. But I guess in that sense, I think if Marx put it upside down, then I don't know, maybe you get more abstract as you perform dialectics, and that's how he gets to like abstract labor and like universal exchange and stuff like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean the way I understand it in my very simple, smooth-brained, way, is just that literally how you think about things, or Hegel. Here's my Hegel. How you think about things determines how you act, and then how you act reinforces or changes, or the result of your action then would say reinforce or modify the way you think.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of keeps going. Whereas Marx, it's let's say like what's already there.
Yeah.
You interact with it. It kind of pushes back on you, and then you change the way you think based on kind of how your environment pushes back against you in a way.
Right, like your
both
ideology,
social and natural.
Like your ideology is like secondary, and also not the materiality that like forces new condition. So it almost sounds like he kind of cuts like ideas out of the like material process of I don't know, not dialectics.
Well, actually, I guess that's not entirely true, because the thing is, especially with humans, is that our ideas do. Well, actually, this is not necessarily in the portion of Delanda we read, but he does talk about one of the things he has gone to in a lot of lectures that I listen to is how we talk about, say Eskimos and their snow, and all the different words they have for snow. And he's like, this isn't because like snow has these like many different essences like to them, right? This isn't like a like we kind of mystify it a lot of times, like, oh wow, they like actually like see the snow differently or whatever. But it's like for him, it's like no, like they have to live there, and so they have to, their language is kind of has to change based on like how they're interacting with it, and so they had to develop different like conceptions arose out of their material circumstances, as people or beings surviving in snowy region, right? And like traversing different sorts of snow, like to survive.
Gotcha.
And so but at the same time, the funny thing is, I was actually thinking about this, like I feel like if you really got down into like scientific literature around snow, I'm sure we've got like way more words for snow. We just do it differently, or like we might just, the way English works, like we'll just add a adjective on and give it like extra meaning that way. Like he talks about how like, oh, like yellow snow like is very different from say like powder, or crusty snow. Like there's all sorts of ways we can describe snow.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily need to have like distinct individual words. I don't know.
So I guess I'm curious is like, does that have a material effect? The fact that like language becomes structured that way as a result of material conditions, or is that truly like operating at this level of like, I feel like ideology is too loaded of a term, but like I guess like a Marxist look at ideology where it's just, no, I don't really get how Marx looks at ideology. I guess I'm saying like, well, do you think that
Mike?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say really quick, like you were kind of going into the mystification of the commodity, right?
Like the secret,
in like
secret.
Essentially the commodity fetish.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about that. I guess I hadn't thought about it explicitly in that sense.
So no. Well, I was gonna say someone who's far more learned in Marx than me. I was listening to him, and he was essentially saying that ideology, like by the end of Marx's life, he doesn't really talk about ideology, and the notion of ideology as like false consciousness was never actually. I guess that was technically Engels who coined that, and he only said it like once in like a letter.
Right.
And even though like that's like when we think ideology, we think, oh, false consciousness. You don't see your place in you don't see your social whatever as being proletariat, like why the proletariat doesn't see themselves as proletariat, right?
Yeah, I guess ideology is the wrong word. I guess I'm trying to get at like what makes Marx different from Hegel in terms of materialism, and whatever like Marx considers not material, then like that is what I mean by ideology. Where it's like, would you put the language that forms as a result of material conditions like into that category as something that is not material? If that makes sense. If that's too vague, I can ask something else.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm way out of my depth, honestly. I just, my understanding was just in that very simple terms of like which has like primacy, let's say.
Yeah.
Like idea-based superstructure or idea, let's say, then the material that the idea acts of. I mean, I think if we look at the world in its like most, let's say, scientifically rich, or as rich as we can tell through science, the idea of like, say, a material world as being like a dead thing, like, or how did someone put it? Like the world is full of furniture, like when we talk about the material world, there's this sort of idea of like, the world just has these like static objects like strewn about. And like, then there's these like us who is like the active objects within it. But I think a true like scientific understanding of material is precisely that, like nothing, and this kind of goes into that like process that I think is central to like Deleuze, which is that everything flows. What is that, Heraclitus?
I haven't read him.
You can't
so
step
maybe...
in this. No, the Pontaré shit. Everything flows. The pre-Socratic, Heraclitus. That sort of idea that everything's in motion. Like, so even something that looks like a rock, like a rock is not moving.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a whole, it doesn't move, but like within it, you have atoms constantly moving, right?
Yeah.
Like on the atomic level, there's always movement, even though the like, say, order between different atoms will like stay the same until it's like, say you have like a rock come and smash it apart and break apart that like matrix of relations.
Yeah.
That like crystalline structure. Whereas, like plants or even us, like we're atoms that are constantly like changing and moving out. Like we're much more like a flame, we're like visibly a pattern, but we're not the same thing day to day. We're not the same atom.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least some of them are, but a lot of them are constantly moving through and out.
Yeah, I guess I just have to separate that, like, yes, everything is animated, but it still feels like not everything is like material, at least in the way that I try to the way that I try to understand Marx. Like there has to be some distinction, right, between like, you have social relations. Yeah, I guess I don't know how Marx would phrase like a rock. Like I think we would all agree that like a rock is material, but like it doesn't have the same sort of like material effect in itself the way that like, a relationship between two people would have an effect on either of them. I don't know.
But I mean, for Marx, even in Marx, I mean, again, I'm not a Marx scholar. It's hard for me to really build up. I mean, I got to be honest, dude. I haven't even finished Capital yet. Like it's I'm still lost in the linen.
I actually,
you know what I mean?
Dude, I just got a copy of David Harvey's Reading Capital, which I've heard is a really good secondary source.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should read it sometime. I feel like I've only read like one section on the commodity fetish.
Yeah, I've been told that when you're reading the secondary sources, you can't just read one. You need to triangulate. You need like three, because they're each going to kind of have something.
I see.
And you also need to like see how they disagree with each other. Like, what do they agree on? What do they disagree on?
Oh,
like where are the contentions?
Yeah, I guess I just meant like reading it alongside Marx to just sort of get like an annotated.
Oh yeah.
version.
Oh well, yeah. He also has like I've watched Harvey's lectures.
Yeah, I've heard people really like him.
Which is well, I mean, it's pretty quick and simple. I just honestly, the main thing is, I mean, again, like as much as I get mad at like Delanda like simplifying or like stupidifying Marx, kind of like making a paper tiger out of some of the ideas, it is dated. It came out of a different conception of how things were, and I mean, I think you can read Marx far more charitably than many do.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like to gain any value out of it, you kind of have to be charitable, because if you like, you can, I'm sure, find many places where he's like factually incorrect or the analysis doesn't exactly hold up. I mean, for those who say are very let's say, dogmatic about, like, say, the tendency of the most important one, the tendency of the rate of profit to decline. Like, obviously that, because Marx thought it was going to happen. Marx thought capital was going to reach its, like, crisis like 100 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, like, how he saw profitability declining. He's like, oh yes, if we just kind of move this trend, or we just follow this trend out, like, boom, communism by here, like Germany will have to go, communist, by this point.
Yeah.
It won't be able to keep, but, capitalism has so far been able to innovate its way out of each crisis it's faced.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so even if it is true, and for the reasons that Marx described, that there is a tendency, people don't just go, like, follow the trend, people react and change, like, what they're doing, how they're doing it in response to these trends, and so far, we have been able to innovate and modify, like we're doing, to kind of get around some of these imminent contradictions.
Right. I mean, clearly we haven't found some theory that actually works, because we're still in this mess.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I mean, I guess that's what I appreciate about Zizek's project, which is, like, trying to bring Lacan back into Marx. Because, like, I feel like Marx offers just
remember, Marx is actually very secondary to Zizek. It's really, his project is to save Hegel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, at least in Sublime Object, it feels like, yeah, it is really hard to pin down, like, the kernel of his thought. Like, I feel like and this is a hard way to phrase it.
Amen to that, brother.
It feels, maybe this is, like, a terrible way to phrase it, but it feels like many of the philosophers that we're reading have, like, some fundamental matter. And, like, for Deleuze and Guattari, it's desire. And, like, I think for Lacan, it's, like, a lack or a demand or desire or something. For Marx, it's, like, social antagonism. Like, they all, like, a lot of these people, for Bataille, it's just pure energy. It's, like, they all have, like, this different sort of, like, fundamental flavor. And for Zizek, it's hard to, pin down if he's, like, everything is going to resolve upon social antagonism, and we're going to start talking again about, like, a socialist revolution, or is it going to resolve, more on the level of, like, ideology and psychoanalysis. But I don't know. I mean, maybe that's intentional. I mean, dude, he's so interesting to listen to, because he never fucking directly addresses anything. Like, he just does allegory after allegory, and it's infuriating once you start paying attention to it, where it's just like, dude, just answer the question. But I guess you can't. That's the whole point.
Yeah. Zizek's an interesting. The funny thing is, I feel like I also cannot say like what his central thing is, that, because I'm not sure if necessarily that is even possible. Like, I feel like if he could be summed up so easily, he could have been, like, dropped that easily. But the reason why he's still interesting, and why he can come up with, the ideas he does, is because it's not just so simple. I feel like it's also because there is always, like, the key maybe to him is, again, in that Hegelian sense of, like, where's the contradiction in this idea?
Yeah.
Like, I was just listening to a symposium where he was talking about, I guess, like, the transgender. I guess there's something going on in, like, Lacanian psychoanalysis with, like, how do you treat, like, transgender people? Or, like, how do you, because, like, Lacan, I guess there was some, like, there's some structure to, like, sexuation.
Yeah, I actually asked
Lacan's
about this.
Theories, right?
I asked about this on Reddit. I was curious what the modern psychoanalytic community thinks about transgendered.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't finished it yet, because, like, oh man, sometimes they're, like, throwing out references. Like, I remember it took me some time before I remember one time I was listening to Zizek, and it was just literally, like, when I think it was probably on Reddit, someone was like, oh man, you gotta listen to this guy. And I was like, okay. And it was like a Fora.tv lecture. I just remember, like, nothing. Like, there was words. I could hear the word, but I couldn't, like, I could hear the sound, but I couldn't hear the word. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I just literally could not, it was just complete, incomprehensible, like, gibberish, to my mind.
Yeah.
And I think it was maybe after, like, watching The Pervert's Guide to Cinema.
Oh, I had to bail on that.
Kind of, like, oh, what's up?
I had to bail on that. I, like, couldn't even sit through it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I need to go back. I mean, it's
really, even as a Lacanian, or, like, as someone who's, like, read Lacan. Because,
no, this is like 5 years ago, before I really even knew who he was.
Because I feel like what he's doing, I feel like what that movie does, like, that movie was the first time I, like, took psychoanalysis seriously.
Oh, snap.
Just because, awesome. Oh man, you could just, you kind of got like, oh, because like movies are truly a fascinating thing, like
they're pretty ripe for analysis.
Yeah, but I mean, also just how, like, this is something that came up in like Peterson's lectures as well, is like, like you're watching like a cartoon, and it's like, how the hell do you understand this? It's like we all kind of take it for granted because we do understand, because we do watch and like we get it.
Yeah.
But it's like the cinema art, the art of cinema is truly magic. Like,
well, I mean,
in the way that, or just in the sense that it how images can interface with our mind, right? Or not just image, sound, how you do like cuts, like how you cut, how you block, the entire, like, where is the camera's frame, and so Zizek kind of going through, let's say, like David Lynch and Hitchcock, you're able to, through these filmmakers who are just blow your mind when you watch some of their, or I'm thinking Lynch just blows your fucking mind when you watch him, and it's but then it's like, then how do we understand, or how do our minds kind of put together, or what's kind of a way you could put these together? Or like, I was actually wondering, do you understand the Deleuzian idea of like the line of flight?
No, I've heard it, but I don't know what yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting to look at like art, because it is sort of a direct projection of one's ideas, and if you consider ideas to be material and feed back into the structure of our social relations, then I guess analyzing the movie or like the art allows you insight into like this material part of like our everyday lives. Like, I guess by understanding art, theoretically you could understand what's going on in somebody's mind, and then I don't know where you go from this. That's kind of where it falls apart.
Mike, did you ever read any of the New Republic Star Wars books?
Yeah.
Do you remember Grand Admiral Thrawn?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, remember how he had the artwork of all the different species?
Oh yeah, it's coming back to me.
Like that. Yeah, that was like how he understood and like defeated, or was able to defeat different species. He would like study their art.
Oh my god.
And like get a sense for like what their psychic,
I love that.
lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's why it's science fiction.
You bringing that up reminded me.
But I was going to say
that's the greatest.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to say that's the greatest travesty of Disney taking over Star Wars, is we will never get a movie with Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Oh, we might. I don't know. I mean, if there's money to be made, Disney will find a way.
But dude, they tossed out that entire. The entire New Republic. They've redone everything.
Yeah, but I mean, they selectively bring stuff into the new one. Like, they did a Boba Fett backstory. He already had a backstory in the books, but they brought it in and had their own version of it. So it's like they own the IP. They could just bring in Thrawn and have him be like a, I don't know, comedian or something. I don't know. A better
yeah,
profession.
No, see, that's even worse. That's even worse, man. If they brought him in, it would be some like cameo for like, hey, wait, Star Wars nerds, we know you.
I feel like he was in the cartoons. Aren't the cartoons owned by Disney? Was he not?
Oh god, he could have.
Yeah, he was in. Dude, he's in Star Wars Rebels, which is like being made right now. So there we go.
Well, nothing that
on
can't
Disney.
Be capitalized.
If you have Disney
right?
Plus, you could answer this question.
If I had Disney Plus, I would watch The Mandalorian.
I did want to get back though to like what we were talking about with psychoanalysis and like thinking about like people being transgender. Zizek talks. Zizek actually sort of addresses this in Sublime Object, where he says he talks about like the feminist critique of Freud, which is basically like the Oedipal family is a man and a woman, but that's not the case for every family. So like how does the logic of the Oedipal like complex and arrangement like actually work, because clearly like people that don't have this traditional family are still turning out the same as everyone else for the most part. And Zizek's point is that like this is a symptom. Like I think Marx came up with the word symptom, but it's a symptom that progressively reveals the kernel of the real within our symbolic order, and sort of maybe unravels it, or just sort of progresses it, and eventually allows like this sort of contradiction to come back into the fold. So I guess like be sublated through like this moment of realizing the contradiction. So it's like a part of the dialectic process of understanding that like we were able to first point out that the Oedipal complex like does not stand up to feminist critique. And I think you could probably say the same thing for like Lacan's view of sex. Like he had a binary sexuation. Not that I fully get it. It's the diagram is fucking crazy, but that does not work for people who change their gender. Although I don't know, I mean, I guess he does not tie gender to biology, because I think he associates an obsessive trait, or I guess an obsessive personality, with being masculine, with having a masculine unconscious structure, and a hysterical with a feminine structure. But men can be hysterical, and it's more of like which. Like, I think he talks about the hysterics dialogue, which is basically like this constant questioning and demanding of answers. And I think like many of us fit that bill, that we just keep.
I relate to that.
Yeah. And so that
never satisfied with the answer I'm given.
Well, and I think he talks about too how good that is, that it was like, because of that, like, okay, so Freud had all these theories, but then he was working with what he called hysterical women, and they would constantly just refute these theories and just like demand that he explain himself and that it makes sense. And they just kept demanding answers, forcing him to sort of resolve all the holes in his theories and arrive at something that was a more accurate representation. Which is pretty cool. I mean, I think that's actually kind of an interesting part of like a social dialectic, where like you do have this, I guess you arrive, I don't know, do you arrive at something that's truer in like a universal, or do you arrive at something that's just more particular for like what you're experiencing?
Well, more communicable or understandable for him, at least, right? Mm-hmm. In the sense that, when, I mean, if you're trying to, I mean, that's the interesting thing about human communication, right?
Yeah, it has to be like intuitive on the other side too.
Yeah, you have to need some pushback, right? That's the thing with me. I always feel I always want that pushback, but it's got to be like,
I mean, it's critical, like
pushback that I feel properly addressed. You know what I mean? Not just dismissive, but
yeah, no, I mean, I think that's critical. Is you have two people engaged in dialogue that are like, you know, forcing the other person to like explain themselves and follow a logical train of thought, and you know, that's not something you can do by yourself, I don't think.
Or you know, one thing, Plastic Pills, I listened to his podcast with others. The one thing he constantly does is he's like, hey, that's jargon, anchor it, you know, like, give us a concrete example, like right now, like no going any further.
Dude, I've been doing that a lot more lately, is really just always trying to pick out particulars to explain something. And I did that at work today. They're rolling out this new, like, it did a really quick tangent. They're rolling out this new compensation, like promotion process, I guess, because oh my god, so we don't do raises. You have to get a promotion to get a raise, and so it all becomes about like performance review and stuff like that is really important. So they have a new review process, and they're like, this is going to be a standard for everybody. It's going to be very transparent, very like, you know, reduced bias, will provide, you know, clarity on how you stand in terms of like how close you are to getting a promotion. And then as we start to go through the actual like framework, it's not clear at all. It's like they're saying like level one is like exceeds in basic situations, and level 2 is exceeds in simple situations. And I'm just like, okay, so could we give like a particular example of like when it's simple versus when it's basic? And nope. And like the person who was rolling it out, like, you know, could not, and like clearly didn't want to talk about it. But it's just like, I mean,
like, what's that Kafka quote that Zizek was just mentioning it earlier? So it was like the only evidence of the divine is like bureaucracy.
Yeah, it's all powerful.
It's just it is so fucking hilarious how it's like, here's this like transparent system, like you know, but of course it's more opaque than ever.
Yep. Anyway,
that's so. Oh man, we've got that same shit. That's the thing with like the postal bureaucracy. You know, it's much more obvious. You know, like we've got the
You don't have the postmodern boss.
I remember. Oh yeah, not exactly. Well, here's the thing. I remember because we have like a review process. You know, when you're like, if you like start out in probation and they like haze the fuck out of you. And then later, you know, you're like good, but I just remember there's like you're like graded on like, you know, it's like unsatisfactory, satisfactory, great, you know, what, there's some like 4 or 5 point like grading system. I just remember it was hilarious how, you know, cause I went from like one probation to another really quick because I made career so quickly. And it was just so funny how like I was working with a supervisor and she gives me, like, she knows I'm good, like we're good, we do the job, you know, she's very happy with me, but she's like giving me like unsatisfactory. It's like, because you have to I have to show it that you improve, you know, or whatever.
And that's ridiculous, because if you're doing well, how do you improve?
No, that's the thing. It's complete horseshit, because the point is management management can never show that you're satisfactory until you pass, until you're like the very last review, because they need to leave it open to themselves to be able to fire you. And they don't want some bullshit like, hey, you said they were good on their performance review. Why did you fire them?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fucking hilarious like that in larger organizations, you know. It's like the masks of power.
Yeah. Did I tell you I got selected for jury duty? Or no. I have to call in the night before, but I think I'm just going to roll up with like Foucault and just like when they're interviewing me, yeah, I think I'm going to and just start reading passages when they're like asking me interview questions and hope they dismiss me.
Just like hold it on your like cross your arms across your chest with the title like poking out.
I hope that works in Portland. I feel like Portland would still like be like, okay, this worked. Like I'm probably more a person's peer here than anywhere else. I guess that's a terrible way of looking at social relations, but yeah.
But it is funny how like this is supposed to be our like duty and like the sign of our democratic participation and justice, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck that shit. This is just a chore.
Yeah, I don't really want to
sit around.
I don't really want to send someone to jail. That's not like something that I would really feel good about.
Yeah.
But actually, honestly, that's why I kind of really find Marx insightful in my own life, is because I think his definition of the state, and then like later being refined by like Bataille and Althusser and like other people and Foucault, I feel like comes off of Marx, in that like it's pretty clear that like the courts, the prisons, and the police all form like this, you know, apparatus, like and I think it's a great name too, is like the repressive state apparatus, which is like a wing of capital. Like that seems very clear to me. But yeah, anyway, I guess that's all I was going to say about Marx.
Capitalist relations don't work without it.
Yeah, and I guess it's always like, I mean, we've always had, and I think Foucault is like, maybe Foucault is not a Marxist because he's looking at disciplinary structures that date, you know, back to like the medieval time. I don't know how far back his investigation goes, but certainly before capitalism.
Marx. Yeah, I don't think you really need to understand Marx to understand Foucault. Mm-hmm. I think Foucault can inform and enrich, let's say, what's at stake.
Yeah.
You know, and like what we should fight for. But yeah, I think they're very separate things.
Mm-hmm. So
I mean, because again, Marx's critique is, hey, like given the like perfect liberal world, like what's the contradiction, right?
Oh,
I mean, because like capital is kind of a direct response to Smith and Ricardo.
Yeah.
And I think that's also one of its limitations in the sense that like I haven't read it, but I know that people recommend like the economic and philosophical manuscripts, the the Gundrisa.
Other writings.
I'm trying to think. What's the critique of the Gotha program? The critique
German
of the Gotha
ideology.
program. I need to read that because apparently that's his primary critique of like the state, because he never got to that section of capital.
Is it relatively short? Much more interested in
reading
something that wasn't 1,000 pages. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's because I'm pretty sure it's a letter from Marx to Kautsky, who was the SPD, the was it Socialist Party of Deutschland, I think.
Okay, wait. Let me ask you a question. So we can spend all this time reading one author after another, sort of tracing the genealogy back to Plato to better understand what they're all saying. Like, or we could just skip it and just not read any of it. But like, let's say that like, all right, we're taking our approach and we're just like, let's say we're just never gonna read Kant, and then we end up with this like, you know, view of the world that's informed by like other people. Is it like less accurate than if we had read Kant? And if it's not, if it's really just like we just end up with the viewpoint, you know, that corresponds to the input to some degree, then like why does it make sense to like, you know, read like certain thinkers, really any thinker, right? Like we could probably cut out reading Althusser if you feel like Foucault has a better reading of the state, because Althusser, you know, sort of builds off of Marx's, and like that whole lineage could just disappear, and like would you be any the poorer for it? So it's like, why just read one thinker after another to get like a survey? I guess you see where I'm going with that? Oh,
well, I mean, Mike, I refuse to accept a, like, you have to read this, and
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I reject that from the get-go. I mean, because I'll be honest, Althusser was never on my reading list. It's like, I don't really care.
And I'm willing to, I can walk away from him. It's like, I feel like I mean, I feel like it's kind of self-contained, that like the lineage kind of stops there, and that like the authors that I'm most interested in reading don't really talk all that much about Althusser. So having an understanding of him just like isn't that necessary.
Yeah. Again, the thing with I think we could potentially lack precision in certain things. I don't think we'll necessarily lose accuracy. But that also is like, I don't think either of us are aspiring to like scholarhood, if
Mm-hmm.
like that's not our aim to begin with, is like to be the like definitive source. Another Plastic Tales reference, because I've been kind of going through his back catalog since I found out they actually had a podcast.
Oh yeah.
There was one. It was like, should you go to graduate school?
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually it was funny to listen to, just because it was like I've essentially, I made that decision years ago that like I am never going to graduate school, unless for some reason there was like some sort of job or like I just had to do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'm sure I could, but there's just no, because I got in undergrad what I needed, or I feel like I got what I needed so that I could learn what I need.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I mean, as somebody
like
who
I feel like I have all the tools.
Yeah, as somebody who dropped out of grad school, I think you're on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main reason to go is if you want an academic post. And the way I look at that now is like, I don't know, that could potentially be a rewarding job, like in the sense that like less alienated. But man, just looking at the poor adjacent, like, or not adjacent, what do you call that? Adjunct.
Yeah.
The adjunct professor, like hell.
Yep.
That, and like, oh my God, it's such a diminished, there's certainly not an expansion in higher ed that would like warrant.
Plus, it's like in philosophy, I mean, you can just read books. I mean, it's maybe the most accessible field because it's literature. You don't have to do like scientific research that requires expensive machinery. So it's like, if you really want to read about something, you just go read it. You don't need like a formal institution or process to like, to do it. I mean, I guess unless it was like going to be a source of income or something.
No, Mike, actually that did hit, you did hit something, you brought up earlier. Having someone to object to you hysterically, someone to demand you do better,
okay, so
refine your ideas. There is value in it.
Yeah, so you join.
That is the one. Sorry, go.
Oh, I was going to say, so you join a book club. Problem solved. What were you going to say?
Yeah, but I was going to say that, I mean, that is the one. I was thinking about this, like, what would it take to, I mean, I've been thinking of this for a long time, like, how can we do education better? Because we're obviously doing it terribly, as a society.
Mm-hmm.
And like, even though there is so many amazing resources, like on the internet, for some reason that just doesn't translate, I guess, because a lot of it, like, unless you're incredibly self-directed or you have like a purpose or a unifying goal that like drives your like educational like momentum and learning like towards a certain direction.
Well, okay.
Maybe it's almost like,
No, sorry. What were you going to say?
Oh, just, no, you jump in.
I mean, I was going to say, it's like maybe we're talking about two different kinds of education, where one is like job training, and that's something that maybe you could teach yourself because it's, something that you want, where maybe you need to like actually pay to do it because it requires professional training. But then there's also just sort of like general, like continuing education.
Hey, this actually, we just got tangential to a Delanda, but not necessarily a nonlinear history.
Yeah. How's that?
In one of his lectures, he talks about the difference between knowledge, like declarative knowledge, and know-how. And he kind of looks down on the knowledge in the sense of like what words follow what word, like when you say one word, what's the next series of words or whatever. Whereas like know-how, like either skill. I mean, the thing is, I think even with words though, there is some know-how. Like, I do think that I think that education, and even like say formal education institutions and something like graduate school, having someone or paying people to really read and give good critique and constructive critique so that you can say like write better, so that you can be relevant, to other people in that milieu. I do think there is value in that. For some.
Yeah, I mean, you do need to enrich yourself to then
it would be
enrich
nice.
Your community.
Yeah, I just, the problem is we only have so much time in life, and we only have so much youth. Something I realized, having just passed 35 this year, is like, oh man, I mean, I'm essentially halfway, maybe not halfway, I guess fuck, I don't know. But yeah, like, I mean, time, it's amazing how fast a week goes by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm like my happiest right now. Like I'm doing what I want. Things are pretty stable. But yeah, I don't know. Not to totally go into what is it? Existential dread. Oh, what were we talking about right before? Delanda and education. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I guess
school,
that's
learning.
Yeah. No, I guess.
Sorry, you wanted to finish something on that?
Yeah, no, I guess I didn't have that much more. Okay, yeah, I was gonna give an example. So it's
we're
like
kind of talking about the direction that our reading,
yeah, right.
our learning.
So I was gonna say, like, here's an example. It's like I spent 100 hours listening to a podcast on the history of Rome, and now I know a bunch of stuff about Rome.
Is that History on Fire, or
it's called The History of Rome, which is awesome. It is an awesome podcast. I really recommend it if you're interested.
Oh, will do. Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly. They go into like detail on like Roman taxation and
yeah, it's like 100.
The rise and fall of the Republic.
Oh yeah, it's like 100+ episodes. So it goes into a lot. Also, I have notes that I took. I'd share. But anyway, so like that's a great example. Is like that's not something that serves me in any professional sense, and it's not something that like I would ever feel like I could only get access to through a university. So like that's kind of the thing that I see as like continuing education that like one could do on their own. So it's like if your interests are philosophy, then like you can satisfy that type of education, more of the general continuing education, just by reading books. And you don't need to have, and like by reading books and discussing and refining your understanding, of course, but not something that you need to be in like a formal institution to be trained on how to do, I guess is the point that I was trying to make.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I already essentially developed, or the main thing is it's not just, it's kind of like how do you prioritize? Like, rather than say necessarily like reading your notes, like after I listen to this podcast, I'd much rather just kind of like now be interested in versing.
Yeah.
Because as we actively recall, it kind of also brings up like, well, what do we actually remember? Like, what are the things that really stand out to us?
Yeah, and that's the kind of depressing part of it, which is that are we really just regurgitating things we both know but have forgotten, and we're just taking turns reminding each other of things that we each already knew, but like we're not coming to mind? And then it's like, does that have a point? Like, does that have value? Or are we just basically like trying to prevent the atrophy of just like constant forgetting, right? It's like all we're really doing is trying to just hold on to some knowledge that wants to be forgotten.
No, but I mean, Mike, when at least I always feel like when I'm talking with you, I'm not just like reciting different, like you know how some people are in certain relationships, you kind of like talk about the good times, you talk about the times we had like back then, do you remember when this happened, like it happened like that, and you kind of, when you're with that person, you just try to revivify and so that you still remember that like the good thing, but I don't feel like we ever do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. I feel like we're both growing.
I mean, my maybe best time memory with you, I mean, not that we don't have some good memory, have some of us, but I just still, that time so long ago back on the deck where you're like, don't you ever get tired of talking about the same things?
Oh, yeah.
It was just the perfect,
I felt bad for saying that.
No, but Mike, again, it was the criticism that allows for like, hey, we are like looping right now, And so like, I feel like when we talk, and like why I think philosophy matters at all is not so that we can like remember and like then deploy like philosophical knowledge at like a party to like one up someone and prove that we're smart, like we're already beyond that like phase of life. Like I still remember Eddie, talking about how, he went through that phase where like he had to be right, And I think a lot of us who go through education, or do well in education, at least one of the driving factors is like we want to be quote unquote smart, we want to be perceived by others as like a smart or like worthy one.
Yeah, but I do that sometimes.
Like philosophy, but I feel it's not just like, oh, dude, I do too. I can't. There's a certain amount you can't help, because, we still got egos. We still need to like reinforce our self-identity.
Yeah.
We're not Buddhas.
Yeah.
Or Christ, but like we can, I mean, the thing is like when we go over, say something like history, I mean, or at least I feel like what I would bring up or like what interests me is, like how does it parallel now? Like not just like, hey, what happened? Do you remember this fact, that maybe we could use in a trivia night, to like, hey, like how can we understand or maybe predict like where things are going to go, based on what we know about the past, like.
I mean, I can make a prediction that the more I talk about Lacan, the less people are going to want to hang out with me. So I have got that level of awareness out of philosophy.
Well, something I realize whenever how I know that I still don't fully understand Zizek is that I end up it's like, okay, I understand certain like Lacanian notions through like Zizekian examples and jokes, but I cannot make a joke like, or I don't have a certain like funny example like Zizek does. You know what I mean?
I will say half of what sells me on psychoanalysis are the jokes.
Like I was just thinking about like
Sorry, what?
Oh yeah. Oh, well, see, that's the thing. It's like, it's funny, like that's honestly why I like Zizek so much, is he's just so fucking hilarious. Like who else would liken anti-Semitism to Pokemon Go?
I made Amy watch that the other night. I was like in bed and I was like, okay, it's 3 minutes and you have to watch this. I was like in the middle of reading and I'm like, okay, I'll pull it up. And I would say she was pretty fucking confused. She was like, who's this person talking? I'm like, oh, it's Zizek. She's like, I don't know. I think it's the fact that he has an accent and a speech impediment and he's talking about Hitler and Pokemon Go all at once is the part that is, I don't know, tough to sell. But
yeah. Well, the funny thing, Zizek's an example of, like Zizek's nose. I've always felt, one thing that Zizek was like the only philosopher or like that I could ever get anyone who didn't otherwise care about philosophy to like actually listen to or try to understand. There's like something about him and his like obvious, like his thing with his nose, and the fact that he just can't fucking keep his nose from running or like it alone.
Yeah.
That it's like the l'objet petit a, the partial object of desire.
Are you saying his tick is his objet? That's funny.
Yeah, I think so. Because there's the idea, it's like, the way I understand it through him, the partial object of desire is it's the thing that seems to be the impediment to the true thing, but is actually the thing itself. Like you think, oh, if only he wasn't so disgusting and like had this stupid thing with his nose, like maybe you could understand him and like maybe he'd actually be like a intelligible philosopher.
Yeah, right.
But if he didn't have the thing, that illusion would collapse,
Damn.
That he's comprehensible at all.
Yeah.
Truly falls apart.
That's fucking crazy. I give you that. I buy it.
Yeah. Or he talks about like how women who have like a beauty mark on them are like more attractive or like you actually like them more.
Yeah.
Because it's like perfection needs a flaw, And I've always felt like just his little mannerism, because that's the thing, whenever someone's quoting Zizek, they can always do the thing, like other philosophers, you probably can't replicate their like language or tone, or it's just like, how would you? But it gives a little hook into that people can libidinally invest.
Right. And so that's like the kernel of the real that like persists within the symbolization. So like we have this idea of Zizek, and at the center of it is this tick, and that is like without it the whole thing would collapse. But I feel like that's not my understanding of objet, where like I feel like objet is like the cause, the real that is the cause of our symbolic order, and I have a hard time translating like, well, okay, well, I don't know, I guess I see that. The real is the cause. Or sorry, what?
Well, isn't the real the cause? But it's not. It's like the cause. It causes by not being there. Well, it's like the gap. Like the way I've understood the real is kind of like in Freud, like the Freudian unconscious is not a thing. It's the irrational gap between like, or it's like the gap between action and, let's say, rationality, right? To some degree, it's like,
it's
like you think or you say one thing but you act another. Like there's a gap in there. Yeah. The thing is, it's like you have, say, the philosopher or like philosophical knowledge and the person delivering it, and then you have you have I just think of like the philosopher, the wise man, the imparter of wisdom, and you're like, you want the wisdom, and what's getting in your way is this, and what differs from that, say, like perfect philosopher is all these like weird biological tics and the windiness of his speech, and how he can't just stay on a damn point, and like resolve the thing. But like the gap between those, the gap between the idea and his like material reality.
I guess I just have trouble understanding it because I look at like objet during like the initial castration, which is like, maybe I guess the example that Lacan gives is like objet would be like the mother, and for a while you have the desire of the mother, sort of on demand, but eventually you realize that like the mother desires something else as well, and then like in his triad, like the mother desires the father, and then the father is the first signifier that you acquire. So it's objet would be like the desire of the mother, and that ends up being the cause of our symbolic order because it's what determines how we begin the process of signification, or like it creates our first signifier. So in that sense, it originates with us desiring objet, and not being able to get it. And I'm sorry, what?
No, wait. I thought I thought objet or the partial object of desire was not the thing not the object of desire. I thought I thought the point of le petit a was specifically
it's the object cause of desire.
You can't get what you desire, but you can get la petite a.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm probably not explaining it very well. So first off, my understanding is there is no difference between objet and petit objet, or objet petit a, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say objet. I hope that we're talking about the same thing. But yes, there's a difference between... Oh, sorry?
Oh, yeah, no. You just say objet a?
Yeah.
Let's just say object. Let's just be English, man. Fuck this French shit. Object A.
No, I gotta say objet.
Or anyway. Let's just say little a. Little a.
No, because it doesn't make sense. If you say the first part in English, it'd be little o.
Is it little o?
Yeah, it's little other. Petit other.
Is other start
with
A? Does other start with A and?
Yep.
Oh yeah. Let's do lil o.
No,
Lil.
I can't.
Lil o.
I hope you'll forgive me, but
Hey, we're innovating signifiers here, right? Or is it?
So I guess
significate. Yeah. I'll be 100% frank with you. I do not understand Lacan.
Yeah. I'm not saying that you're wrong in any way, but I'm just trying to point out that I'm getting these two different messages about objet, because like in the case that I'm describing, there is desire of objet at some point, but like I never desire Zizek's tick, I think, unless maybe I do without knowing it. But I think that's the key difference, is that like it stands out so much because it is not something that we desire. It is like seen as an impediment, so it can't be objet, at least in my understanding of objet. But I agree that it is this like kernel of the real that without it, the symbolic understanding would collapse.
Well, I mean, this is just what I've gotten from Zizek, but there's something in Lacan that, let's say, is equivalent to the obstacle is the way, in the sense that what we think is the obstacle is actually the thing itself. Like another example he gave is, this is maybe a little different. He was talking about like two painters. There was like a painting competition of like who can draw like the more realistic, and one drew like birds, and like the birds like flew and tried to interact with them with the painting. And the other painter drew a veil, and the painter said, now like raise the veil, but the one who drew the veil won because he drew what he drew was the obstacle too, and so like the obstacle created the illusion that there was something greater behind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that even kind of ties back into what we were saying, that like misrecognition is part of the process of understanding, that like it's not an obstacle to something, the obstacle is part of getting a greater understanding.
Oh, you mean like in the sense that like being correct, like tying into earlier what we were talking about with like learning and how being corrected and having to like reiterate yourself is like crucial to learning, right?
Yeah, I think that's
you don't
the same
learn.
Idea.
Yeah. You don't. Yeah. I totally get that. Yeah, you don't learn from being right. You only really learn from being wrong.
Then I must be learning a lot.
Hey, man, as long as we're alive, there's something to learn.
Yeah.
Just really, I think, what do we want to be wrong about? I think that's the important thing, Where do we want to spend our time being wrong or failing forward, so to speak?
I like that a lot. Yeah, I feel like that's really telling about a person through like the lack or through the negative is how you understand like what's really going on, like what you omit tells about what your intentions are, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to
elaborating on that?
Oh, like, I mean, if you look at a person and they spend their time reading about like human rights or something like that, you could look at it as like, this is a person that really doesn't want to be wrong about human rights, so human rights are important to them, something like that.
I guess, but what do they omit?
It's the study of, reading about cars, or like, I don't know, things that are just not really ethically as important.
Here, I thought the way I always see in Zizek or Lacan, or to the degree I see Lacan through Zizek, is what's being left out is much closer, or like the lack is closer, I guess.
You mean what?
That's like the big lack, right? You know.
You mean specifically what parts of Lacan Zizek leaves out?
No. I mean, I guess when I see someone studying human rights, I guess what I wonder then is like, well, are you just studying it, or like, you know, what? Yeah. I mean, I guess what's lacking there in, say, that study of human rights, you know?
Yeah.
Or that's just the thought I had when you mentioned that.
No, I like that.
Yeah. I don't know. Sorry, Mike, you were going to kind of wrap things up, I felt.
Oh, I was going to see if you wanted to just start reading a little bit of D&G, if you were still into that at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd like to at least understand. I want to extract some value out of it. You know what I mean? Like, I want to steal their shit.
Okay, here's what I propose or
at least what's good in it.
Here's what I propose is that we start at page 1 in Anti-Oedipus, and you read a paragraph, and then we have a quick discussion and cap it at, like, I don't know, a minute or something. And then I read a paragraph and just do that maybe for a couple pages. We don't have to do that. It was just an idea.
Yeah. Well, no. I'm just trying to think, what are the natural sort of delineations? And yeah, we should probably start Anti-Oedipus, right? If we're going to do the two, capitalism and schizophrenia.
I think so. I think that's what people recommend.
Yeah.
I have my copy.
Well, I almost kind of want to.
Oh, sorry. What would you rather do?
It's funny because. Oh, no. I was just thinking it's funny because Zizek says everything, like, Deleuze is great, but Deleuze and Guattari are garbage.
Right.
But no, I do want to understand the point. I want to understand their world.
Well, I feel like this is Deleuze's closest writing to psychoanalysis, right? Like, it's a critique of psychoanalysis. Mm-hmm. And, like, I am interested in psychoanalysis. So I feel like this is the Deleuze that I want to read, at least personally.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm interested in it is, or the thing that draws me in, you know, Plastic Pills did a video about, you know, the schizoanalysis as like a method of like emancipation, liberation, like within capitalism. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious about that.
It's like a rapid deterritorialization. I think I was watching maybe the same video about it. And you're basically.
I know he has like at least two videos on. One is like specifically about like schizoanalysis and like the body without organs. Mm-hmm. And then another's just like, I think it's on something, it's like something Deleuze. He's into Deleuze, so he's done a few. There's a lot more Deleuze content than others.
Yeah. I'll start. 1, desiring production. It's at work everywhere, functioning smoothly at times, at other times in fits and starts. It breathes, it heats, it eats, it shits and fucks. What a mistake to have ever said the id. Everywhere it is machines, real ones, not figurative ones. Machines driving other machines, machines being driven by other machines with all the necessary couplings and connection. An organ machine is plugged into an energy source machine. The one produces a flow that the other interrupts. The breast is a machine that produces milk, and the mouth is a machine coupled to it. The mouth of the anorexic wavers between several functions. Its possessor is uncertain as to whether it is an eating machine, an anal machine, a talking machine, or a breathing machine. Quote, asthma attacks. Hence, we are all handymen, each with his little machines, for every organ machine and energy machine. All the time, flows and interruptions. Judge Schreiber has sunbeams in his ass, a solar anus, and rest assured that it works. Judge Schreiber feels something, produces something, and is capable of explaining the process theoretically. Something is produced, the effects of a machine, not mere metaphors. So
let's just
what's your take?
Let's chew on that for a while.
So it sounds like there's two kinds of machines. There's those that produce and those that consume, and there's like this flow of energy between the two. Is that?
Well, first of all, the thing for me that is hardest to stomach machine, hardest to thought machine, is these are not I mean, they essentially say these are not metaphors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're real.
Yes.
Okay, so does that help us visualize them a little better, that it's not just this concept?
Well, here's the thing I guess I want to ask you. Is that a statement of fact or a statement of how they are going, like, or of a, like, impose this filter? Like, in the sense that, like, there's a way that you can look at things as machine, you know? Like, say, the breast as, you know, milk, producing machine.
But he's not saying that it is inherently a machine.
Well, so organ machine, energy source machine. One produces a flow and the other interrupts. Breast is a machine that produces milk, mouth is a machine coupled to it. So saying this isn't a metaphor, saying that these are actual machines, for me, because there's just too many ways in which that's not technically true. Just in the machinic, like say you look at like biomechanically or biomachinically, like the function and the actual mechanical goings on of the body are not like that in that way. And to say that they are machines is kind of to force like the closure of a gap. And it seems to me that it's like that it's so that I guess that was the main thing when I first read it was like, okay, are we supposed to like kind of take it on faith that this is true and just see kind of what follows by assuming this?
Yeah.
Or are we supposed to actually believe that they're making that statement like as though it stands up?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that there's a contradiction there between them saying not a metaphor, but also it can only be understood metaphorically, or rather like, yeah, no, I mean, I think, but I'm okay sitting with that contradiction for a while.
Well, I guess I was kind of wondering, is this kind of the gateway to schizoanalysis in the sense that we're not going to, the boundaries are not what they once were.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
that Judge Schreiber has sunbeams in his ass, the solar anus.
Yeah, do you know that?
And
that
rest
backstory?
Assured that it works.
Oh, I guess
no, I know that
they have it in a footnote on that page, which might be good enough. But sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, it just seems to me like it's kind of like, I don't know, like the gateway to hell, abandon hope, all you who enter here, I too was created with eternal love, sort of thing, like we're passing a threshold, if you know what I mean, like we're entering a new place, a new space, a new reality.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of how, for me, it has to be that way.
Yeah, I mean, Deleuze does say he is like a pure metaphysician, so I think that it would be fair to like read him as saying like this is like the metaphysical reality that I am describing, and I think that would make sense to read him that way. I think from what I loosely recall is that Judge Schreiber is an example of a body without organs. I feel like somebody said that, but also the solar anus was a book, or Freud wrote about it, and Bataille wrote about it as well to give color to it. So this guy, like, I guess, pops up somewhat frequent in the field, but I'm not sure what the consensus is by each person. Sorry, what?
Oh, well, the thing that also trips me up, the body without organs trips me up more than maybe anything.
Wait, we're not there yet, so maybe let's hold off on that and go to the next paragraph.
Sorry. Yeah.
Would that be okay?
Yeah, of course.
Would you want to read it, or do you want me to read it?
Yeah, I'll read it.
Okay.
Not mere metaphor. A schizophrenic out for a walk is a better model than a neurotic lying on the analyst's couch. A breath of fresh air, a relationship with the outside world. Lenz's stroll, for example, is reconstructed by Buchner. This walk outdoors is different. From the moments when Lenz finds himself closeted with his pastor, who forces him to situate himself socially, in relationship to the God of established religion, in relationship to his father, to his mother. While taking a stroll outdoors, on the other hand, he is in the mountains amid falling snowflakes, with other gods or without any gods at all, without a family, without a father or a mother, with nature. What does my father want? Can he offer me more than that? Impossible. Leave me in peace. Everything is a machine, celestial machines, the stars or rainbows in the sky, alpine machine, all of them connected to those of his body, continual whir of machine. He thought that it must be a feeling of endless bliss to be in contact with the profound life of every form, to have a soul for rocks, metals, water, and plants, to take that into himself, as in a dream, every element of nature, like flowers that breathe with the waxing and waning of the moon, to be a chlorophyll or a photosynthesis machine, or at least slip his body into such machines as one part among the other. Lenz has projected himself back to a time before the man-nature dichotomy, before all the coordinates based on this fundamental dichotomy have been laid down. He does not live nature, but as a process of production. There's no such thing as either man or nature now, only a process that produces, the one within the other, and couples the machines together. Producing machines, desiring machines everywhere. Schizophrenic machines, all of species life, the self and the non-self, outside and inside, no longer have any meaning whatsoever.
So I read that as like Lenz is a good example of practicing this, like I feel like the word is deterritorialize, basically like moving around and just experiencing like this sort of dissociation of, or this dissolution of boundaries, and really just feeling like a direct connection to things, to everything. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I understand territory or deterritorialization as a or territories like in human minds, right? It's like, so the connections that he has to God, the connection he has to father, to mother, to family.
Yeah.
Let's add on also like to society, like where he fits in the like symbolic constellation, right? Like I guess I always think of that J. Alfred Prufrock, or T.S. Eliot's stuck on a pin, like fixed in place as like a insect stuck on a pin. He's stuck in this like social relationships, right? The funny thing about this example though that I was thinking is how he made like say disassociate from his like human relationships, but it's not like he's how do you call it? It's just like it's like a different coordinate system.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of how does he relate to say like fellow humans or like the human symbolic order, it's like how does he relate to say the natural order? But he also, it says not nature, or how do you call it, projecting himself back a time before the man-nature dichotomy. But I mean, if he's like above or beyond the dichotomy, I don't know. It still seems to be like a separate. There's still that separation between say like social, natural.
Yeah. Well,
even if he's now in one rather than the other.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that there is still some fixed entity, which is his body. Because it was about all of these things being attached to his body. I guess I'm curious.
Because now he's in a larger machine, right?
So, okay, yeah, I mean, that's another thing is like, does his body have machines inside of it? And why would the machines detach to the level of his body and not like the machines that make up his body? If that makes sense.
Well, I mean, Mike, you've done more psychedelics than I have. Like, but that just that feeling of like, or how you're so much more like on say acid or shrooms. I can't say, I've never done ketamine, so I don't know. I've heard those are more like inward, but with the say like outward facing,
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're like in a natural habitat, like you just feel so much more clearly like what's already there, but that you ignore most times, right? Like you really feel the sun and the heat, or the cold, So I mean, in the sense of thinking of like the body as machine, as like factory, you're like getting different inputs
Mm-hmm.
and outputs.
Yeah.
Like your production, your self-production or self-producing production
Yeah.
is now taking in different material.
Yeah, and I think that's what the Judge Schreiber thing is, that like the sun is coming out of his body as like a single machine, something like that.
Well, I mean, just to put it in more of like how the language we usually use, the solar anus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that more of like a sensation? I guess I was wondering if like that's like how his words relate to like how he's like feeling himself, right?
I think different people have different views on the solar anus. I don't know what the reading, or I don't even have enough thoughts on, so I'm not sure how to read it.
Because I'm just like I feel the sunshine on my head, and like I can be in the sun and like focusing on my anus, but my mental circuitry doesn't like then make those two one.
Yeah.
I just was wondering if that's what he's doing. I mean, I assume he's not like sunning his anus.
No, I think the solar anus like is Judge Schreiber was a person who literally believed that sun was coming out of his... And he I think that's what it says in that footnote. Let me just read it. Daniel Paul Schreiber was a German judge who began psychiatric treatment in 1884 at the age of 42 and spent the remaining 27 years of his life in and out of mental institutions. In 1903, at the age of 61, he published his Memoirs of a Nervous Illness, which Freud used as the basis of his influential 1911 study on paranoia. I guess that doesn't really explain what the anus is in reference to, but I think that is true, what I just said.
Yeah. I guess because I was just thinking that, I mean, in a certain sense, you can think of like your shit as sunshine, like materially, I mean, aside from the fact that like Neil deGrasse Tyson would call it, because everything on Earth is stardust, right?
Yeah, it's like a productive process.
Well, I mean, I was thinking not in that sense, but like, how do you call it? Like what? I mean, because sunshine, makes the food that we eat, right? And then is processed by us and excreted.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in a sort of literal sense, we're shitting sunshine. But I mean, I guess I thought it had more to do with like how his like symbolic identification had changed, in the sense that like how he orients and like, like how we map sensations upon our body. Because I thought in the sense of like how an actual schizophrenic, say, experiences themselves is they aren't able to, say, draw the same like delineations between like I'm feeling pain in my foot, right? Because you no longer, like, your body isn't like a coherent thing in the same way.
I see. Gotcha. And so Judge
like
Schreiber
your like inner.
Judge Schreiber was experiencing this and just generally attributing sunshine to his anus, but really it was, in his mind, his body. No, I guess
I'm not. I actually have no idea what he was.
Oh, okay. I guess it's
I have no idea because.
I was just gonna say, my reading of like expulsion in psychoanalysis is that it is not a desiring or productive process, that like people are anal expulsive in that they want something removed, like they want it evacuated, as like as a way to be rid of something that is like bad, and so that doesn't feel like it tracks with like some sort of like stimulating productive desire or something that produces like those almost feel like they're opposites, like they oppose each other. But I don't know, psychoanalysis has a long history, so it may have come a long way since anal expulsion to the solar anus.
Well, here I was thinking that the intestinal machine, like primarily produces shit. I mean, I guess technically it also produces everything that produces the energy that feed my other machines.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not in a metaphysical sense, you're right, excrement has nutrients and energy in it. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm just anal expulsive and I refuse to like give, excrement any positive traits so that I can just feel good about getting rid of it. Sorry, this is too
it does feel good to get rid of it.
All right, can we move on to the next paragraph?
Yeah.
Okay, it's about the same length. So now that we've had a look at this stroll of a schizo, let us compare what happens when Samuel Beckett's characters decide to venture outdoors. Their various gaits and methods of self-locomotion constitute in and of themselves a finely tuned machine. And then there is the function of the bicycle in Beckett's works. What relationship does the bicycle horn machine have with the mother anus? What a rest to speak of bicycles and horns. This is a quote. What a rest to speak of bicycles and horns. Unfortunately, it is not of them I have to speak, but of her who brought me into the world, through the hole in her arse, if my memory is correct. There's a footnote, but it's not on the same page. It's often thought that Oedipus is an easy subject to deal with, and this is the end of the quote. The quote's over. It's often thought that Oedipus is an easy subject to deal with, something perfectly obvious, a given that is there from the very beginning. But that is not so at all. Oedipus presupposes a fantastic repression of desiring machines. And why are they repressed? To what end? Is it really necessary or desirable to submit to such repression? And what means are to be used to accomplish them? What ought to go inside the Oedipal triangle? What sort of thing is required to construct it? Are a bicycle horn and my mother's arse sufficient to do the job? Aren't there more important questions than these, however? Given a certain effect, what machine is capable of producing it? And given a certain machine, what can it be used for? Can we possibly guess, for instance, what a knife rest is for if all we are given is a geometrical description of it? Or yet another example, on being confronted with a complete machine made up of 6 stones in the right-hand pocket of my coat, the pocket that serves as the source of the stones, 5 stones in the right-hand pocket of my trousers, and 5 in the left-hand pocket, transmission pockets, with the remaining pocket of my coat receiving the stones that have already been handled. As each of the stones moves forward one pocket, how can we determine the effect of this circuit of distribution in which the mouth too plays a role as a stone-sucking machine? Where in this entire circuit do we find the production of sexual pleasure? At the end of Malone Dies, Lady Pedal takes the schizophrenics out for a ride in a van and a rowboat, and on a picnic in the midst of nature, infernal machine is assembled. Quote, under the skin, the body is an overheated factory, and outside, the invalid shine glows from every burst pore. End quote. I think maybe I'm gonna need it. So there's definitely a big criticism of the Oedipal, like it's making fun of it. I get that, and then it's drawing this example of like a stone moving machine, and then like the mouth gets involved. But where do you get like this, the sexual pleasure from? I think maybe that's also sort of this critique of psychoanalysis. But I don't know. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, the Oedipal triangle is the mother, father, son, right? Those are like the 3 points of the triangle.
Yeah.
Does daughter have a work in the Oedipal?
There's something called
that work? I mean, again,
Jung came up with this idea called the Electra complex, which, as I understand, is basically the Oedipal complex, but for women. But no, I don't know how Freud reconciles with. But the Oedipal project is mother-father. I'm like, okay, 95% sure.
Well, here I was just thinking that, I mean, essentially, Freud still has to apply that to women, right?
Yeah, I don't, and that's the thing is, I know how Lacan conceives of the feminine structure. I don't know what Freud's take on.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's the thing. I remember someone mentioning how, I think it was Pills. He's talking about how the Oedipus complex is like the foundation of Freudian psychoanalysis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, again, I guess I don't know enough about Freud to fully grasp that, or how that is the case, and then like how other things then come out of that.
Maybe I think it's that you have this id, and then you have to learn how to control that. I think it's like, no, I don't know exactly how the Oedipal project connects to the psychological apparatus. Sorry, what?
Isn't it like symbolic identification? Because it's like you identify with the father,
right?
And you're not the mother, because you have the phallus and she doesn't. I mean, but of course, then the daughter also, I guess I thought, identified with the father, but doesn't have the phallus.
I think Freud answers that with, castration anxiety, is that women, he says, believe that they were men whose penises were cut off or something like that. It's either castration anxiety or penis envy. I forget which one, but I think that's how he addresses
castration. I thought castration anxiety is a male thing, whereas the penis envy is the female thing, right?
No,
it's like the.
Okay, wait.
I thought the man is scared that he's gonna be castrated, or when he sees the mother and he sees that there isn't a penis, he realizes that he could lose his.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And whereas the daughter sees something that she does not have.
Mm-hmm. You're right. I think I'm confusing those two.
Yeah, but the thing is, it is funny. It's like, he likens the Oedipal triangle to the bicycle and the mother's anus.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm on my work computer. Otherwise, I'll look this up. Yeah. Okay. So
what do you need to look up?
Oh, just the.
Oh yeah,
difference between penis envy and castration anxiety.
Yeah. They just have it. They're like contracting out to some algorithm to like screen, because they don't want to pay a human to like screen these things. There's just some algorithm that's like assembled these things, and then it auto references. It's just like little buzzers going off in some in some room somewhere.
Unit worker 3613 has become self-aware. Send in the bots.
Yeah. Castration alert.
Was there anything else?
It just reminded me of.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no. Well, see, the thing with the skipping past that, because I honestly don't understand the Oedipal triangle, which unfortunately means I think a lot of the trying to distance themselves from Oedipus, is difficult for me to get that aspect of their work, because I don't know what they're distancing themselves from.
I mean, maybe they just ridicule it and it's not.
Talking about.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, they make this sort of what are to me familiar as machine example of, say, like a knife rest. You've got like a geometrical object that's a knife rest, but just given the object itself, like where's the knife in it?
Mm-hmm.
There's something missing in the like. And then the same with like, hey, I give you a description of stones in pockets, which that was pretty funny, honestly. But then it's like, why the stones move between the pockets. There's something missing there.
Well, this might be where they break with Lacan, because I think Lacan would be comfortable only looking at one half. Like, he would see the knife rest as like the lack that defines the missing knife, whereas in Deleuze and Guattari they need both the like the producing and the consuming, I should use the right term. Both the organ machine and the so like there's no lack there. I guess there's always a coupling.
Yeah. Well, see, for me, I mean, again, what are the different solutions for knife rest? Like, I honestly, when he says knife rest, I'm not even entirely sure what he means. Are they talking about? Is this like a vaginal imagery? Here, I'm going to Google. What is Google?
That's a good question
for knife rest.
I don't really know what knife rest is.
If it's like a lot. Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's like, essentially think of like a chess pawn on its side. It's literally just something to keep a knife off the table.
Okay.
But you can also put a fork on it. But yeah, I mean, if you essentially look at that on its own, it doesn't imply the knife. Like, that's actually something I was just thinking about, from like a mechanical engineering or like, say, industrial design perspective.
Yeah.
Like, how you create something or what you create to fulfill a certain like task, like there's a lot of room there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you could essentially create a sculpture that acts or is like for the purpose of a knife rest,
right?
But only like one little piece of it actually really fulfills that function.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so there's kind of endless design, you know, an endless pot, or not endless, but highly unconstrained. You know, like the amount of constraints required for, like, say, like the mechanical design of like a knife rest is very little. I mean, it's essentially like, as I could tell, you really want a surface, you know, like you want say something to prevent the y-axis from like a decrease in the y-axis, and you want it to maintain its stability on some other surface, right? You know, it's like a very, very, very simple machine. You know, and same with like the, you know, you've got like movements between, and I guess this is sort of a different one, but you've got the movement, you've got stones in pockets, and they move from each other. And then, you know, you later, like, how did he end that transmission pocket? With the remaining pocket microcosine stones, how can we determine the effect of this circuit of distribution in which the mouth too plays a role as a stone-sucking machine? Like, see, it was like there at the end where you find out like these stones are in movement in relation then to the mouth. You know, it's like, so as soon as you add in, because I was like, okay, why do you have stones in your pockets? You know, and like, and then it says, where in this entire circuit do we find the production of sexual pleasure? You know, and it seemed to be the production of pleasure is outside I assume they're kind of implying that the stone sucking is like a asexual pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
And
so it's just more of
or
a more.
Is that an Oedipal?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
Actually, sorry. Now that I just thought of.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, well, I just thought, you know, because essentially, you know, there's what moves the machine, or why the circuit of distribution only makes sense with desire, right? Only desire, human desire, or the human machine desire, you know, in relation to the stone sucking machine of the mouth, you know, gives any sense to the circuit.
Yeah, and I think that lines up with my understanding that DNG think of desire as like the productive.
But I guess I was just wondering if the whole, where do we find sexual pleasure? Is that a poke at Freud?
And I think that's part of his critique, is that like sexuality only comes into this picture like accidentally. Like there is no direct connection to that being a sexual thing. And I think he's pointing out how ridiculous that presupposition is.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah. Here, I'll read it out. This does not mean that we are attempting to make nature one of the poles of schizophrenia. What the schizophrenic experiences both as an individual and as a member of the human species is not at all any one specific aspect of nature, but nature as a process of production. What do we mean here by process? It is probable that at a certain level, nature and industry are two separate and distinct. From one point of view, industry is the opposite of nature. From another, industry extracts its raw materials from nature. From yet another, it returns its refuse to nature, and so on. Even within society, this characteristic man nature, industry nature, society nature relationship is responsible for the distinction of reliably autonomous spheres that are called production, distribution, consumption. But in general, this entire level of distinction, examined from the point of view of its formal developed structures, presupposes, as Marx has demonstrated, not only the existence of capital in the division of labor, but also the false consciousness that the capitalist being necessarily acquires, both of itself and of the supposedly fixed elements within an overall process. For the real truth,
I think it's real.
For the real truth? Yeah, for the real truth of the matter, the glaring, sober truth that resides in delirium, is that there is no such thing as relatively independent spheres or circuits. Production is immediately consumption in a recording process. Was it enregistrement? Is that in registered?
I think you had
it. Sorry, I'll just go to the footnote. The first term, enregistrement, has a number of meanings, among them the process of making a recording to be played back by a mechanical device, e.g. a phonograph. The recording so made, e.g. a phonograph record or magnetic tape, and the entering of birth, death, deeds, marriages, and so on in an official register. So let me go back to that. Production is immediately consumption and a recording process without any sort of meditation. And the recording process and consumption directly determine production. So they do so within the production process itself. Hence, everything is production. Production of productions, of actions and of passion. Productions of recording processes, of distributions, and of coordinates that serve as points of reference. productions of consumptions, of sensual pleasures, of anxieties, and of pain. Everything is production, since the recording processes are immediately consumed, immediately consummated, and these consumptions directly reproduced. This is the first meaning of process as we use the term, incorporated recording and consumption within the production itself, thus making them the productions of one and the same process. That's a fun one.
Yeah, so basically because, okay, I guess it sounds like he's saying because production and consumption are inseparable, and distribution. It's not like that we have these clean spheres. In reality, they're all part of the same thing, which is production, and it's everywhere. And I don't know, what was your...
I mean, that's essentially it. In the basic simplification is just that.
Let me ask you then, it's like, if production and consumption are the same, why wouldn't we say everything is consumption? Like, would it make a difference to say... Well, oh, sorry?
They're the same process, same in process. You can delineate as we do, as we're used to doing. I think the point being made is that they are truly the same, right? Or because you don't... Well, shit, though.
He says...
now I'm getting all Marxist here, which is like overproduction, underconsumption, all the capitalist troubles.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm unfamiliar.
But I think they're, because they're working on the machine, they're working within like this machine paradigm or machine metaphysics. They're not just talking about actual what we call production and consumption. I mean, in a certain sense, in the production or shit, I'm trying to remember their words. The main thing is like you think about in let's just go to physics, because again, we're talking about like machines as like flows of energy, or like the way they talk about machines, schizo machines, is not just what we think of as like, say like the factory. There's always this like image of like the factory, and you've got like the trucks come in, they drop off the raw materials, it goes through the factory. You've got then the complete material, the commodities come out the other end, maybe smoke out the smokestack, that sort of image. But in things like physics, like one thing that's interesting about, say, radiation is that everything's radiating heat at all times with everything else that it can, there's a constant flow back and forth of energy between all objects,
Right.
Like the way heat transfers, thermal energy moves about the world. Everything produced is consumed by, some other. And so, but it's hard to see how that works with actual, like, say, production within capitalist society.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that...
Because, I mean, one of the issues of capitalism is you want to produce, but you need people to consume what you produce.
Yeah, I wonder if the key difference between like that and classical thermodynamics is that like the production system of capitalism is not like a closed system. Although it kind of sounds from Delanda like it doesn't really matter if something's a closed system, because in reality there's no closed systems like that. I don't know if he makes that point.
Yeah, or you only make it a closed system like your analysis closes the system.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of one of my things that I struggle to understand with just dynamical systems in general, is like, how good are we at drawing boundaries around systems? Like, do we really know where one system ends and the next one begins? And like, how much of the analysis or the study of systems is like gonna just be, measurement error, or just like, be limited by the way that the scientist or the person doing the analysis conceives of the problem. So it's really like, you can't actually study these things because you are part of the system being studied.
Well, I'd actually, how do you call it? Accuracy, let's say ignoring your own role in the analysis, because like we always have, actually, no, I guess that is, can't exactly, yet we make assumptions, right? Our analysis necessarily ignores it. And so like good analysis and like what you essentially learn in, say, like engineering school is what is safe to ignore, right? Or then as you maybe get to a higher level and you don't have the same sort of like simple system that you're dealing with, like how can we experimentally determine like what are the more important factors?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Like, because you're always going to have near infinite factors of what exerts some effect. But, in say designing a machine or trying to solve a problem in a like at least machinic system, you can usually it's dominated by certain factors rather than others, and so you get the majority of the behavior you want by just focusing on those and reinforcing those to the extent that, and then how do you call it, controlling then when that it's not used outside of the range in which those constraints hold.
And then you have
right? So like a car engine.
And then you have like a
if it gets like it can only what's up?
No, please.
Oh no, I was just thinking like so it can only work within like if it gets too damn hot, potentially it won't work, right?
Yeah.
Like or electronics, say like your computer, like there's certain things that it needs like voltage within a certain range. If the voltage goes too high, too low, it won't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a bunch of interrelationships that are essentially built upon the assumption that, say, the voltage doesn't go too high, the temperature doesn't go too high.
Yeah.
You're going to get like a certain energy provided in a certain waveform at a certain frequency, and if it doesn't get that, it breaks.
Right.
I mean, the problem usually happens, and so like we can get machines that work, within their range of operation. The problem is sometimes when we then try and machinically approach like human society.
Yeah, where you can't really you can't really control those necessary parameters.
Yeah, or you really don't want to. Like the control of parameters is horrific. When the parameters are us. When it's like I remember there was some talk, with COVID now about like what's optimal, or like coming out of COVID, like what's the optimal unemployment, for our economic machine. Or I'm kind of adding that machine part on. But, there's this idea of like, how many people should be without a job or income source for things to run right.
Right, and you need to have that gap so that the exploitation can be like the necessary exploitation can exist. Sorry, there's like potential for exploitation in order to get like this. I don't know, maybe I'm getting carried away with your point, but yeah, I mean, you're right that we really do need to look at the assumptions.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure exactly. I assume you're talking Marxist exploitation, right?
I don't know. I think I'm kind of just getting away from myself anyway. It's getting a little late, and I should probably.
Yeah. Let me just finish up there. I mean, just in the sense that I'm not actually sure exactly how in Marx unemployment plays into exploitation. I normally think of the reserve army of labor because for capitalists to say pursue new, create new machines of production, produce new economies or do different things. I mean, aside from the ability to discipline your current workforce by threatening them with unemployment, you need a certain amount of people like ready to go. I remember you mentioned how, there was some like available labor market that could, that like styling could be moved to.
Yeah.
Like if those people were employed elsewhere, like where could they go?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Like you need people on the market for for you to have an option, like as a productive capitalist.
But then to keep the machine
running,
you have to keep people on the market.
I'm sorry, go.
But then to keep the machine running, you have to like keep people on the market. You have to keep people unemployed.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Let's break there because, like you said, it is getting late. I mean, it is fun to do this. It's a lot more fun to do this back and forth with you. I get a lot more fine-grained understanding.
Yeah, no, this was
doing it this way.
This was a great conversation. I'm super happy about it. I mean, yeah, maybe we'll just pick back up sometime when it's the two of us, or maybe we'll just have read a little further and can talk more about this book as well. All right, man. Well, awesome talking to you tonight. I'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's good to have. It's good to have just us if no one can make it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Bye.